Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Hondo Carpenter. I'm your Las Vegas Raiders beat reporter on SI. It's great to have you guys with me. Very excited to have with us today, as we do each and every Sunday. When you see his face, you're like, "Ooh, it's Sunday!" From Men's Journal. I'm still not used to that, but man, he's doing a great job. The great Matt Halatic. Matt, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, man. It's a pleasure to be back with you on Sundays. It'll be even better in a couple months when there's games.
So I was asked by three different people this week to make sure you told everybody where to find you online now. So is it mensjournal.com? What is it?
Yes, it's mensjournal.com. You can find me on there, and that's where all my work is at this point. If I go back to the Spun at some point, I will let you guys all know, of course. But for now, you can find me at Men's Journal, and you can find me, of course, on X or Twitter at Matt Halatic 919.
Awesome. All right, let's dig right into the schedule. I got a lot to talk about with the schedule with you. We're going to obviously start with the Raiders. I think it was a good schedule. This was a very good schedule. They get 9 games at home, 8 away. But I think the way the schedule sets up, the way the bye week in week 8, I mean, the whole thing, I really like it. Now, let's go back to last year very quickly. The Achilles heel of this team was three things: decimated by injuries at key starting players. I mean, they lose 9 defensive starters. Plus, Colton Miller was out at first. It was just tough. Coaching was not good. Now, it got better when they got rid of Luke Getsy, but it still struggled in other areas. And the third one was a lot of lack of discipline. Those issues have been, and quite frankly, I guess you have to add a fourth. There was not good quarterback play, and you don't win in the NFL without good quarterback play. Talk about discipline. In comes Pete Carroll with an exceptional staff. They keep Patrick Graham, who was the superstar. Him and Robbie Leonard were the superstars of the coaches on the staff. McMahon too, special teams coordinator. You cannot leave him out. That guy's a stud. But you add a Pete Carroll and his staff. So the discipline end of it's been addressed. Geno Smith, enough said. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I certainly think he's in the top 15 for sure. And so that's a complete upgrade. Everybody's back and healthy. And now they're going to have some youth, and youth make youth mistakes. But I think just by what they've done in the offseason, they're already a better team. Let's start with that analysis first. What do you think of that?
For sure, I do think that, obviously the most important positions, head coach and quarterback, they made changes and I believe they upgraded. Um, so that's a major step in that direction. Of course, you mentioned health. You have to stay healthy. You'll see how that plays out. Um, but I do think Pete Carroll, obviously, with the experience he brings and the winning pedigree he brings, will boost the discipline and boost kind of the organizational structure there. So I think they definitely improved. I do think that, there's reasons for Raider fans to be optimistic looking ahead to this year and then especially even beyond 2025.
So then they go into the first of all, they get 3 primetime games, which to me is a testimony of a couple things. I always say this. I was on a national radio show this morning, and um, I always said the schedule tells you the respect the league has for you. Now, the Raider brand is always strong. They always get great ratings. But even last year, you saw there wasn't a plethora of primetime games because they weren't buying what the Raiders were selling. This year, you get 3 of them. That tells you there's some buying into what the Raiders are selling. What do you think?
And I think you get the two back to back, obviously, in November. One of them against, the Cowboys, which are two of the marquee brands in the league. So I think that they included them in the home opener on Monday Night Football doubleheader. Another that's I guess the Chargers, another AFC West game on prime time against Denver. on Thursday night. So I think that you're definitely seeing some respect given to obviously the Raiders brand and the fan base, but also I think you're starting to you see that there's a little bit more of possibly a belief from the NFL that um, there's something building there, especially if they're giving them two divisional games in prime time.
Yeah. So what stood out to you when I look at this schedule, and you know how I do this, when I look at this schedule, to me, there are a couple things. When I do my predictions, I look at what's the ceiling for this team and what is the floor? What is the ceiling that they can succeed and still call it success? And so here's what I think. To me, this is a max 9-10 win team. Okay. I think the floor is 7. Now, hear me out. If there are no injuries, the youth avoid youthful mistakes, I think they can get to 10. But we both know that's not reality. If everything goes wrong, I think they're a 7-win team. So for my way too early, and I get a chance to change my prediction, I predicted 9 wins, but I think this is an 8 or 9 win team. And I think that's being realistic when you look at the upgrades. Where am I wrong?
I think that's fair. I think especially when you look at the fact that they have a couple of you look at their crossover games. They're playing on the road against the two teams that played in the NFC title game last year, and one of them won the Super Bowl. So you got to go at Philly, at Washington. Two of their first 3 games, one of them being the Washington game and the other one being the opener at New England, are 1:00 on the East Coast, which are always tough for for teams. I do think they can beat New England, obviously, and maybe even beat Washington, but it's just a tougher travel schedule. Still got to play the Chiefs twice. Still got to play, Denver and LA, who were playoff teams twice. So I think it's a tough schedule. Especially, there's a couple of easier games. I think maybe when you're looking at, maybe potentially the AFC South as your crossover opponents or the Browns. But I think for the most part, it is a pretty rugged schedule. So I don't think you want to go too far ahead of yourself. But I do think with the talent the Raiders have and with the improvements they've made, the potential is there to be, in that 8-9 win range and be in the playoff conversation.
Do you see? If they don't get to 10 games, I don't think they make the playoffs.
Right.
But I don't think that's a pie in the sky. That 7-9, 7-10 window. I don't think that's pie in the sky. I think that's pretty realistic, don't you?
No, I would agree. I think that, it's especially when you look at the improvement they made at the 2 most important spots, which is head coach and quarterback. I think that will allow them to maybe pull out some games that they didn't in the past, or stay in some games and give themselves a chance to win that they probably wouldn't have been involved in the past.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about schedule release TikToks. These things, now I think it was the Chargers who did it first. And now
Yeah.
you're seeing it all over the league. I love this. To me it's fun. I remember one time, I don't remember who it was, but somebody did in their schedule release oh, that was so disrespectful of the Raiders. And I just remember thinking, relax, it's just fun. It's having fun. I love this. To me, this is where the NFL can really start to do some open field running. If they were to make their social media more fun. What do you think?
I like it too. And I think the thing that it kind of is good for is the fact that, we're used, by the time we get to the schedule release on that night, 8:00, whenever it is, every team, every fan base knows the team's schedule. It's already been reported or it's been leaked. So you know what it is. It's not like you're really waiting with bated breath to see when the games are or who the opponents are. So I think that this kind of makes it still entertaining and kind of makes something that you anticipate if you're a fan, is because you want to see which teams have the most creative schedule releases, which teams kind of go viral, which teams you can see put the time in. The NFL, they find a way to make sort of drama or build suspense with anything. And I think you see that with how hyped the schedule release has gotten in recent years. And, with something like this, I think it only adds to it.
So I get tips all the time from people. And I had Hondo, this is a lock. My buddy works at the league. Raiders Chiefs, Monday Night Football, week 1. Thanks. What? And then I got another one. Hondo, you're never going to believe this. Raiders Chiefs, week 1, Monday Night Football, week 18, Monday Night Football. Okay. I'm not going to, 70 or 80 tips. Not one. Matthew, not one of them was accurate. I just think it's the drama around the schedule is just, this is where the NFL just does a great job creating drama. And I love it's a drug.
It is. And I think they do a good job with the teases of kind of, they give you little drips and drabs at a time. On Monday before the schedule release, they're putting out the international games. And then they put out the Christmas and Thanksgiving schedules. And you see some of all that stuff come out. And I do think, on one hand, it seems it's crazy looking back to how the schedule used to be released. It would just kind of drop like in the spring. You did know your opponents because they were kind of dictated ahead of time. But now it's become an entire, I don't want to say cottage industry like the draft, because it's not to that level, but it's become like its own entity in the offseason, where you're kind of waiting for that schedule and you're preparing. And like you mentioned, the tips, there's so many fake accounts online or people pretending to be insiders saying that, this is the matchup and this is that. And, there was, I even saw some rumors saying that the Giants Raiders game was going to be week 1 because it was going to be Russell Wilson against Pete Carroll. And that obviously wasn't completely far from the truth because they're playing in late December. So it's funny. You got to sort through all of it.
I got to tell you my favorite. So I get this tip a week ago. Hondo, Charles Woodson is buying part of the Raiders. I find out, no, not happening. So the person's like, why are you not running this? I don't even answer. Finally, they're like, I'm going to give it to somebody else. And I just responded, okay. I mean, I love tips. Do not get me wrong. I love tips. And I get a lot of good ones. But I just find it funny the way people are, don't you?
No, for sure. And I think that, everybody knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. And that's where you got to really figure out whose information you can trust.
It's why I'm so careful. All right. Last thing I want to get to, and I think it's a big one, and it's Pete Carroll. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for you and I to talk about Pete. This guy is, to me, he's a surefire Hall of Famer. I don't even know how anyone would dispute that. I don't think there's anything to dispute when you look at his career, what he's done. But I don't think, I know fans are excited for Pete, so I'm not in any way implying to you that Raider fans are not excited. But even in the excitement, I don't think Raider fan realizes how big of a deal Pete Carroll is for this team. Do you agree with that?
Probably, yeah. It's tough because I'm not in tune with the Raider fans on a day-to-day basis the way you are. But I will say that I think that I think the reaction was around the NFL, and the reaction around the general public was pretty positive to that move. But I think people didn't necessarily give it the full thought, because you're talking about a team that has struggled recently and has had a lot of losing seasons, and they hired a guy who was coming off
Winner.
a winner, one of the most successful tenures we've seen in the NFL in modern times, outside of Belichick and Andy Reid. This is a guy who had been was in the playoffs almost every year in Seattle. Went to 2 Super Bowls, won one. Was double-digit wins almost every season. So I think to have that guy with that resume gives you immediate, cachet with the Raiders, and I think signals that, hey, we're really serious about winning.
Totally agree. Matt, listen, congratulations on all you're doing at Men's Journal. I love getting a chance to talk schedule with you. I always like it. Next week, we're going to get your way too early prediction. Obviously, you'll get to change it for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to dig into an issue on the NFL that people aren't talking about and should be with the great Matt Hladik. Remember, mensjournal.com is where you find him. Matt, appreciate you. Thanks for joining me, brother.
Always a pleasure.
You're the best. Absolute best. One of the good guys there, ladies and gentlemen.